what's the importance of today's announcement for the people of Saskatchewan?
Well, I think it's important on a number of levels. One is to recognize the growth that has already occurred and the growth that is going to occur in the Saskatchewan economy and what that means with respect to a brighter future for all of us, wherever and whichever community we might live in, but also recognizing what some of the challenges are and how we can find opportunities amidst those challenges. And the first opportunity, I think, was alluded to by Sheldon Watney, is keep talking. Let's keep collaborating on ensuring that we are including everyone in the workforce and providing those training opportunities for everyone, whichever community they may live in Saskatchewan. And that's the first plank of what we're announcing here today, is to ensure that Saskatchewan people have the first and best opportunity to participate in that growth, to participate in that opportunity, and ultimately benefit in that brighter future. And then on to credential recognitions and immigration after that. But it is paramount that all Saskatchewan people have that opportunity to participate in the growth we're experiencing.
Specifically, maybe in terms of, you touched on the certification things, but for those who are in the province, maybe looking to move up in their career or get a new job, move things along, is there anything specifically in this strategy that's going to help them move along their careers, able to make more money and give back to the province?
Well, one, I would say better communication around the programs that are already in place and the training opportunities that are already in place, whether that be at our universities, whether it be at a Polytech, SIIT, whether it be at one of our regional colleges that are very close and integrated in many of the smaller communities across smaller and indigenous communities across the province. Second, I would say if you are looking at upgrading, we have now accessible people that will help navigate that career that you may want to chart or aspire to, and the goal is that people can improve their career opportunities for them and their family. Second is if you have a credential that is recognized outside the province or outside the nation, we are going to have pathways, and you're going to see that communication come very soon as to how we can help advocate and navigate the credential recognition system that we have here in Saskatchewan. That is leading among the nation in Canada in finding those pathways for our foreign trained physicians and nurses, for example, to have their credentials recognized and to offer services in a facility in our province.
You spoke a little bit about the nursing recruitment strategy in the Philippines, but the Philippines is kind of facing its own nursing shortage right now. So how do you guys make the decision to target?
The Philippines also has a good number of trained nurses that are looking to relocate to somewhere else in the world, and so we have offered, I think, just over 400 job offers to a number of Filipino nurses, as well as other healthcare professionals in that space. But I think it's important to recognize as well, there's I think over 960 folks that have been hired from one of the graduating Saskatchewan post-secondary institutes or one of the Canadian institutes that we have. And so, all told, that's hiring about 7-8% of our entire nursing workforce just in 1 year. They are starting to arrive in Saskatchewan communities and offer those services and limit some of the interruptions that we have seen, and that coincides, I think, with some of the other opportunities or results that we're seeing from, as I've often alluded to, the most ambitious health human resource plan in the nation. So part of it is immigration in places like the Philippines, but other places as well. But largely it is focused on hiring those folks that are trained here in Saskatchewan and trained here in the nation of Canada. And you can see that by the number of offers proportionally that have been offered.
If people don't get their carbon rebates, how do you plan to not remit?
Well, I think the federal government has said there's going to be a proportional rebate that they would offer. You'd have to ask them that question, much like they're treating Atlantic Canadians. Atlantic Canadians are having their rebate reduced because they're paying less in tax. What we have said is that would be the fair approach in Saskatchewan as well, is that we are going to pay less tax. We mirrored the decision that the federal government made, removing that carbon tax from home heating sources that we are able to do. And we would expect to be treated equally among this nation when it comes to whatever rebate may be coming.
So do you still plan to pay the rest of the carbon tax then, that you're walking back that statement you made on social media?
Which statement?
You said we're not...
You're on social media too much again, Jeremy.
I'm just wondering though, so are you still planning to not pay the rest of the carbon tax, or is that...
Yeah, we're not paying. No, we're not paying on home heating fuel that we can control. So natural gas, as well as the proportion of heating that may come from electric heat in some instances. We won't be collecting, and we won't be remitting those portions of the carbon tax won't be collecting from Saskatchewan residents, won't be remitting to the federal government in the identical fashion that Atlantic Canadians won't be remitting on home heating fuel.
Are you expecting to be fined?
No.
And do you think that the rebate that's maybe clawed back because of not remitting will make up the difference in the money that usually goes to the federal government?
I would expect it to mirror whatever is happening and the federal government is doing in Atlantic Canada, where they made an identical decision on home heating fuel. So if it's a proportional reduction in Atlantic Canada, we would expect it to be a proportional reduction here. We're still paying carbon tax. Our position hasn't changed. We think that the carbon tax should be removed on everything for everyone. And we're still paying it on a good number of other things. We're paying it on fuel when we fuel up the pumps to take our children to whatever sports or whatever activities that they have. It is driving much of the food inflation and the general inflation that we're seeing in this province. There's proof of that. As we removed this portion just from home heating fuel, it was identified that inflation dropped in the province of Saskatchewan with the removal of just that portion of the carbon tax. So it is driving inflation, and we still are paying a good chunk in other areas. And the position from the government of Saskatchewan's perspective hasn't changed, nor will it change. It should be removed on all products for all people.
What's your position on national farming here for Saskatchewan?
Yeah, so we're going to have a look at it, and we'll look forward to communications with the federal government. I would say that we in this province, and we have had these discussions at the Council of Federation table over the course of the last number of years. Saskatchewan has one of the most comprehensive drug plans that is income tested in the nation, and we're very proud of that. It aligns or is stronger than most provinces, and would align with the strongest programs that maybe one or two other provinces have. And so we would be concerned if there's penalties for already having that comprehensive program. If you already have that in place, we would expect to be compensated like a province that doesn't have as strong of a drug plan as we have here in the province. And I would say that this actually opens up a broader conversation for us to have provincial and federal governments, and one that we'll probably have at our Council of Federation meeting this summer, on the time that it takes for new drugs to be approved and available to Saskatchewan people. So the time they're introduced to the time they hit the formulary, where either the federal government or the provincial government can actually make decisions about how they're going to support Saskatchewan residents, in our case, access to those drugs. So I think there's a broader conversation to have here. We don't have a lot of information on what was introduced the other day, but we will look forward to whatever discussions we can have with the federal government on how that will be fairly applied to all Canadians across the nation. And as we just discussed, if we have any concerns, it's about the all too often unfair application of policy that comes from Ottawa under the Liberal NDP coalition that we see there. But we'll keep an open mind as we find our way into this conversation.
Your thoughts on today's teacher strike?
Well, I first of all, I'd say that each of the teachers that is attending here, or attended my office in days gone by, and have really been standing up for what they believe is in the best interest of their profession, and I admire them for that, and have told a number of them as well that they are standing up for their profession in an admirable fashion. The fact of the matter is, and I think Saskatchewan families, parents would agree with this fact, is that we want teachers and students to be in the classroom, and the appropriate place for the teachers' union is to be at the bargaining table. To bargain 30 minutes in the last 5 months, which is what the teachers' union has participated in, is not representing teachers very well. And I would say that it most certainly is not the appropriate effort in ensuring that we are keeping our children in the classroom. We have seen far too recently the impacts that our children not having access to a classroom can play in our children's lives. And we would ask the Teachers Federation to recognize that the government in Saskatchewan is moving on a number of issues. We're not going to move to a 23.5% wage increase. We're a jurisdiction that already has the largest per capita investment. Saskatchewan families invest more in education than any other family in any other province across the nation. So the 23.5% is is not going to be the wage that we will settle at. However, we've been listening. We've extended we've expanded to 3 various offers, mirroring, for example, the MLA salaries that are there, to extend the time frame that an agreement could be reached at. And so we're listening, and we're trying to find ways and to make amends for the to find our way to a deal with the SDF and ultimately with the teachers, so that they can remain in the classrooms with our students. That's where we feel they belong, and so we would invite the SDF back to the bargaining table. 30 minutes in the last 5 months is not representing their members well, and it's certainly I think Saskatchewan parents would ask for a more of a commitment to bargaining as opposed to organizing rallies and protests that we see happening here. When it comes to the composition, classroom size and composition, we as a province have invested heavily through that significant per capita investment that Saskatchewan families make in education. $300 million each and every year in supports for learning, $53.5 million post-budget last year, specifically in classroom size and complexity. And I think if we listen carefully over the next day or two, you're going to see a continued commitment to that specific investment by the government of Saskatchewan. It is going to continue to flow through the divisions. We're not going to take what is a locally elected school division decision and transition that decision-making ability to a provincial union. That is going to remain with the school divisions on how best to support the complexity and the size that they have in their respective area. That's why school divisions are elected. But I think in the next day or two, you are going to see an even further significant commitment that this government is going to make to our students in our classrooms, to our teachers that are in those very classrooms with our children and with our students. And we would invite, with that investment, we would invite the union back to the bargaining table. Let's sit down, work our way through these issues on behalf of the students that deserve access to a classroom.
That's before the budget, that money?
Next year or two, we'll chat.
How do you
You'll be
respond
the first to know.
how do you respond to people who are concerned they're going to get a smaller carbon rebate?
They're going to pay less tax.
So it's okay then?
Yeah, but if we don't pay any carbon tax, there's no rebate, but you don't have to pay the tax. I'm not sure in what world you pay more tax to the government just to get it back. Is that okay? The goal should be to pay less tax to the government and to keep those dollars in in our case in Saskatchewan, the hardworking families that are earning them. And so pay less tax, you get a smaller rebate. That's fine. Our goal would be to pay zero of the carbon taxes. I think it's a flawed policy, quite frankly. It is driving up inflation, driving up the cost of our food, driving up the cost of our fuel each and every time we fuel up, and ultimately is not limiting or reducing emissions in any way, shape, or form. Innovation and like what is happening in this industry right here is what is making a significant difference in lowering our carbon footprint globally.
The federal government says low-income folks do make more with the rebate, though, than they do pay in the tax.
So is it about emissions or is it about wealth redistribution? I guess that's a question you could have to ask the federal government. What we would say is it isn't reducing emissions. It's a flawed policy, never should have been introduced, and it should be removed by either this government or the next.
And how do you respond to the federal minister saying you're going to cause anarchy by not following the law?
They made the very same decision. We emulated and mirrored the decision that they made in Atlantic Canada, and so, I don't agree with it. I don't agree that the federal government is causing anarchy by making the decision that they did to remove the carbon tax from home heating fuel and largely impacting Atlantic Canada. To mirror that decision in the provinces on natural gas and electric heat would be the same result. So if one causes anarchy, I would say the other does. But what I would say is that both of them actually are creating more affordability for Canadian families, and they should further go to removing that carbon tax on everything for everyone, because that ultimately would help us in reducing the rate of increase that we're seeing at the grocery store, seeing the rate of increase that we're seeing on all of the household goods that we buy. The answer is not to elect more Liberals in Saskatchewan to ultimately have that representation to reduce the carbon tax. That's anarchy. To have an answer like that to a policy decision that was put forward by this government and then backed up in one sector of the nation is problematic.
And regarding the carbon tax, I think the Atlantic Canada is set to end in the next couple months. Will this government start paying the carbon tax once again once things end in Atlantic Canada, or is this a long-term?
I think it was 3 years. It was approved for 3 years in Atlantic Canada, and that's what we approved for in Saskatchewan as well. Was we mirrored the decision the federal government made. So they made a 3-year hiatus on the carbon tax for home heating fuel, largely impacting Atlantic Canadians. We did a 3-year hiatus on natural gas and electric heat here.
Sorry, can you just clarify? Sask Energy is not remitting payments. Will Sask Power be remitting payments?
Not on the portion that is used for heating homes.
So that goes into a provincially managed OPPS system, correct?
No, that's a separate charge. So there's a charge, OBPS charge, that Sask Power would pay on the emissions from the coal-fired plants and any of the natural gas-fired plants. Then there's an actual carbon charge that comes on your bill. So there's two separate charges. One is going into the OBPS plan. Sask Power plan is somewhat separate than the industry plan, where it's going to be used to utilize transition to nuclear power here in the province, utilized to keep everybody's power rates affordable into the future, and to reduce our carbon footprint and have that reliable base power into the future. But the second piece is what we're talking about is the actual the carbon tax that is on each and everyone's bill that was removed in Atlantic Canada on home heating fuel across Canada, but largely impacting Atlantic Canada, and is also on the portion and is being removed that is used for home heating on electricity as well as natural gas. So there's two carbon charges that are there. It's a little difficult to understand.
Yeah.
Which
is there any concern about protecting Sask Power executives with that decision? I mean,
no, it's all been removed. It's the purview and the responsibility for submitting is now under the minister. Yep.
In terms
last question or two?
in terms of the legislative session, which begins today, what are the main priorities going to be that Saskatchewan people can expect for this session from the government here?
Well, I think the main priorities that you will see from this party, not only in the session but outside of the session over the course of the next number of months, is to continue to focus on the economic growth that we're experiencing and have been experiencing for at least a decade and a half in Saskatchewan. And it's with that economic growth that we're able to all of us to look forward to a brighter future for ourselves, our children, that next generation. And that is going to be the focus of this party, as we obviously are in an election year, is that economic strength, and that leads to a brighter future for Saskatchewan people. You're also going to see, I think, what that economic strength can bring in the ways of investment. Investment in the education sector. We'll hear a little bit in the next day, a little bit about investment in the education sector and this government's commitment to our students, our children, and our educators in that sector. And again, we invite the union back to the table to ensure that we can work on a strong and vibrant and invested in education sector in the years to come. You're going to see investment, I'd say record investment in healthcare as well as we go through this session, backing up and starting to see results with some of the investment that has been made since the pandemic in our health human resource plan. For example, we're seeing our surgical wait list is reduced by about 25%. That is due to investment in people that are offering those services. That is due to thinking outside of the box and investing in private surgeries, whether they be in Saskatchewan or other areas, so that people can get their surgical needs met quicker, sooner, and as soon as possible. And so the economic strength is always going to be a focus of this government, but I think through the session you're going to see a government that's going to talk about what we are doing with the proceeds of that economic strength, investing in education, investing in healthcare, investing in the very communities that we live. And I think that's important to keep in mind, that classrooms are important to Saskatchewan people. Healthcare is important to Saskatchewan people, and what's happening in investing in our communities is equally important to Saskatchewan families. And that's where our focus is going to be through this session and through the next number of months.
Question about there's quite a bit of concern out there about the level of government spending. I know that there was concern by the opposition about the special warrant spending of about $750 million. Maybe just get a response to some of the concerns out there.
So over $400 million of that was directly into healthcare, of which the opposition also complained that there isn't enough investment in healthcare. And so, the opposition is there to do just that, oppose, and it's our job to keep them in opposition, most certainly, from our perspective. So. Significant investment in healthcare, whether it be in our human resource plan, health human resource plan, whether it be in our surgical initiative, whether it be in ensuring that the urgent care facilities that we're building, that are looking at how we access health care in a little different way are going to be fully staffed. And so there's growth and there's expense in expanding the healthcare services that we have, and holding on to the healthcare services that we have in our communities as well. The 1,300 plus nurses that I mentioned have been offered jobs, some from the Philippines, but largely from Saskatchewan, Canada. That requires investment as well to ensure that those folks can go and offer the services that they do, the professional medical services in a community. So largely it was healthcare. There was some that was related to supporting our agriculture industry, and I don't think the opposition would say that we shouldn't be supporting our agriculture industry. And there was some that was, quite frankly, invested in our education sector as well, which I'm sure we're going to talk about as the day goes on today and over the course of the next few days. This is a government that is committed to investing and using the proceeds from the strength of that economy, investing in healthcare, investing in our classrooms, and investing in our communities. And that's what you saw with some of the special warrants that came the other day. And you look towards budget day with respect to what has changed on the revenue side, which ultimately will impact the bottom line of the budget. Because I think there was some rough math that was being done, which is guessing.
Are Sask Energy and Sask Power's CEOs permitted to comment on this whole carbon tax situation?
I'm sure they can commit. They can comment. At any point. I would say they're not impacted at this point in time because the minister is responsible. It was the letters were sent from Sask Energy to remove them from being the gas submitter of the carbon tax in Saskatchewan, and coincided with the application on behalf of the government that the minister would be responsible for remitting that carbon tax. Both have been accepted, and so now it is the minister's decision with no culpability to CEOs or executives.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.